We couldn't get around to this during the election, but I've got a naughty list and I'm checking it twice a day, every day, of people who took a swipe at me. On the chopping block today are Ben Fordham and the ABC for their roles in Nicole Flint's lacklustre game, banned the friendly Geordies from the Labor Party, despite him not being a member of it. I think the game would be her doing a backflip into a pool that doesn't have any water, and then with a broken spine demanding the pool be drained of water. An impossible game to win, and yet the press ran with that, and no one cared. Because all the press ever do with their predictable moral Tourette's outbursts on Twitter is self-soothing. They are licking each other's wounds about the fact that we point out how bad they are, not just at their jobs, at life in general, with, he's thrown a woman, after swearing about multiple men in the same sentence. Is it believable if I'm outraged about that? No. Keep doing it though, so-called serious reporters of the news. I do like showing your compulsive thumb spasms to actual members of the public who like to gawk at you like the zoo animals you are. An example of these little marmosets in a cage mistaking it for the universe was the Nicole Flint saga. None of the twitwits would have known this, but it was clearly a Liberal Party ploy. The spin doctors thinking, how can we throw some decoy meat to draw the attention of all the rabid biddies in teal seats? Oh, I know. Look, biddies, Labor hates women too. This friendly Geordie's character, just like the Greens, is in a secret alignment with Labor. Jump for the meat, biddies, jump. Dude, this woman right here is never going to vote for the Labor Party, ever. Look at her. She doesn't have any problems in life. She reads The Handmaid's Tale so she can fantasize she has problems. She's a Greens voter, through and through. But that's how dumb the ploy was. Maybe we could get people who aren't going to vote for the Labor Party anyway to not vote Labor using platforms Labor voters don't listen to, like Ben Fordham. Fuck. I feel sorry for 90-year-olds. They don't deserve that level of entertainment. They fought in wars. How could someone who was caught watching rim job porn be so devoid of twists? He's boring! If you took him off the air, the amount of people dying in car crashes due to falling asleep at the wheel would halve. You think my life's easy, me sitting here commenting on comments for a living? My life is hard. I'd trade lives with one of those guys with no arms and legs in Bangladesh because at least then I'd be able to play more believable certain Monty Python characters. Like, imagine this is a life, yeah? Awful, self-serving, smug hypocrites that are only in front of a mic because they're the absolute last stop on the train of nepotism before their genetics become so inbred that they start looking like the kid in Midsommar and can't operate a laptop, endlessly attacking you in front of hundreds of thousands of people with lies that are so dumb, so easy to pick apart that it actually goes full circle. They become hard once again. The only thing I can compare it to is, you know when you're watching some bimbo like Abby Chatfield and she opens her mouth, or you're watching Love Island and about the 40-minute mark you think, okay, I think I've heard in here for the right reasons more times than any human being ever should. I think I've done it. I think I've given myself brain damage. You look at the CAT scan of a footy player and then you look at mine. We'd have the same level of head trauma, especially when you're dealing with Lord of the Rings here, because Ben Fordham is the Eminem of idiots. Me breaking down everything he says is like rap fans breaking down the lyrics of one of his songs. Yo, 6 meanings in one line, that's tight. This interview, or diss track, if you will, is that in reverse. I'm thinking, okay, he's invalidated the base of his argument that isn't even his in 6 ways in one sentence, and we haven't even gotten to the compounding effect of these two geniuses looping each other like they're the twin pilots in, and I'm using this comparison deliberately, Pacific Rim. The icing on the cake being this segment begins with...
At Homeworld, you'll find...
No, fuck off.
Now, to the hypocrisy of the Labor Party.
The irony of that sentence alone is like, okay, this is your argument before you open your mouth, and we're already about to topple and you haven't even uttered sentence 2. Listen to how Ben Fordham understands the situation, because it's much like how he understands all situations, dimly.
The retiring Liberal MP Nicole Flint has been copping it from a YouTube commentator and Labor Party mouthpiece.
I don't know how he does it. 6 ways, 1 sentence. He's parallel universe Eminem. Crap god. Everyone in the biz knows this about butt stuff, Ben. He wanted to be a sports commentator, yet despite all his family connections tonight, he still couldn't cut it. Can you imagine how shit you would have to be to not be good enough to say, wow, he really kicked the ball good? Guess that's why they call him Gucci! Ha ha! So they put him on the only task suitable for someone who's too stupid to commentate on the footy, coming up with logical arguments that support the Liberal Party, and you can tell he has no passion for it. Him commenting on train strikes is like listening to the guy announcing when the next train comes. He's not considering suicide, but then again there's no need, as he's clearly dead inside. Do you think this avid arse licker honestly believes anything he says when the very reason his overlord Peter Costello replaced Alan Jones with him is precisely because Alan believed the things he said? Ben regurgitates whatever the company line is that day. It's admitted as much. If you're listening to Ben Fordham, you're listening to the guy in 1984 who halfway between a sentence switches the enemy from Eurasia to East Asia without the skill. Bringing me to his first point of hypocrisy, and we're getting the counter up here just to show you how many there are, but Ben, you are literally a paid mouthpiece for the Liberal Party. Your boss is Peter Costello. I can hear you reading out the exact messaging the Liberals posted on their fucking website. It's obvious. Listen.
Now, to the hypocrisy of the Labor Party.
Yeah, that's a boy, Benny. Sound out the words. Your esteemed guest is a sitting Liberal Senator, Holly Hughes, who, like Nicole Flint, has voted down party lines like she's following the Quran, never rebelled once. If you got this mechanical hand that goes same effect as Holly Hughes. In fact, it's even better. You don't have to feed it. And yet this literal Liberal mouthpiece, she is a Liberal regurgitating clear, coordinated phrases like
Labor Party mouthpiece.
This mouthpiece.
Obviously given to them by Liberal HQ, as they were both at pains to repeat it, meaning here we have two paid Liberal Party mouthpieces accusing me of being a Labor Party mouthpiece because they've been told specifically to use the phrase mouthpiece. You can see why that deserves its own ding, right? It's very subtle, but that's the genius of Ben. He is a man of unintentional nuance when it comes to contradicting himself. Their evidence that the Labor Party pulls by strings is. You ready for this? This is insane.
This mouthpiece has been invited to the most senior woman in the ALP's mother's home. Well, I can tell you, I wouldn't take someone like this to visit my mother.
How removed would you have to be to think that that is a persuasive argument for blue-collar Australia? Especially when you pronounce mother. Like you're that old ghoul in Great Expectations. You're not allowed to see mumsy. Yes, there's an emotional smack on the bottom for you. How does it feel? Lady, why the fuck would I want to meet your mum? Your mum raised you. Your best argument for why Labor has to distance themselves, whatever that means, is that they would have to if they want to be consistent with their stance that you're inventing that they have of not talking to me with Ben Fordham. Holly Hughes, you insane bat. I don't care who you talk to. I really don't care that you exist, actually. I don't think anyone does. Probably not even mumsy. But the fact you think it's okay that you two mouthpieces can have such a cozy relationship that she even says in the same interview where she's accusing me of being too close to Tanya Plibersek because I talked to her, 2 years ago?
Happy birthday to your Fred. Auntie Sarah blew the whistle on that one.
That's how close they are. A man whose entire shtick, apart from pretending he's actually stepped foot in Homeworld when he owns multiple investment properties, is pretending to stand up for free speech. Here he is.
It's got to the point where people with alternate views, alternative views, views that aren't accepted by the mainstream at those universities, well, they're just not welcome, right? They're shouted down, they're forced out.
Yeah, good point, Benny. Almost as good as this one.
And it's something that we normally criticise happening in China, certainly not Australia.
You can find a million of them, yet here he is demanding.
Labor is now being challenged to cut all ties with this nutter.
Then cut ties with Hughes, you slow-witted brick of a man. Stop letting this fringe psycho on to say outrageous things and hate on free speech. You see that? You see how hard it is to actually keep track of how stupid their ideas are? Listen to that sentence again. This is what Ben is telling his audience on a daily basis. You should be banned for saying outrageous things. You should also love free speech. You can feel it, right? You can feel your brain going, duh. You see how draining this all is? This sink is me and the water is my spirit. No.
The keyboard coward has been slamming the retiring Liberal MP Nicole Flint, calling her a hobo and a whiny little bitch.
Says man so brave that he can't even bring himself to say my name. Ever. He's cut it out twice now while directly referring to me, but I'm the coward. You think he'd be doing this to plumbers he used to ambush as a current affair journo? Hello, Dodge Plumber from, not going to tell the people your business name as, I don't want you getting more business. Yeah. Maybe Ben actually could be that dumb now that I think about it. But probably he's doing this to me because he knows that a portion of his audience will look up what was actually said, realise that these two true blue bloods who fully relate to fair dinkum Australia with their elite private school sheepskins and pronunciation of mother as mother actually aren't telling it like it is. His audience would learn from this channel about all the horrendous policy decisions this twisted bint voted for down the line, that they're so desperate to hide that in the very video that they lifted these couple of words from, the entire point of the video is look at what the Liberal Party is voting for. And yet Selma says, in this very segment,
We debate policy in the chamber.
then why do you refuse to discuss any of the policy highlighted in the videos you're discussing? Again, here they are. Give them a watch. What about you though, Ben? You're not a coward like me, right? Why don't you tell your audience of pensioners that this Holly Hughes character froze their pension and cut the government services that they rely on for food and rent? Also, she and her very proper friends could transfer their tax money to your multinational sponsors. Go on, you're not a coward. Tell them. Tell them why you think it's okay to swindle your audience in exchange for yet another investment property. In fact, to sweeten the deal, if you do, I'll give you a lifetime membership to Brazzers. Holly Hughes defending Nicole Flint for a full 12 seconds before bringing the conversation back to herself.
When last week I was attacked by a Greens senator, a woman who made the most vile comment in the Senate chamber.
Remember when we were asking Nicole Flint what she thought about two women being battered in Christo's illegal home invasion by the terror police? Nicole, do you think it's okay that police assaulted two women in their own home because I, not them, made jokes about you? If so, it's great to see the coalition still believes in free speech. And her response was, if that's true, I'm sure it will be properly dealt with by the police and the courts as it should be. Blue checks all have these stupid arbitrary rules they invent on the fly, like, not believing something my friend said outright is a form of abuse.
Tanya Plibersek was asked on air what her response was, and her first comment was, if it's true.
I don't care if Nicole said if, because I'm a normal person that doesn't have some psychological urge to screech like a harpy every 10 seconds, but quote, you fucking idiot.
There was no doubt to the veracity of the claim.
So let's get this straight. It's an outrage that someone slagged off your son, but not an outrage that the party that you're in a coalition with ordered a taxpayer-funded goon squad to go to Christo's house that resulted in the battery of two women. The hag you're in a party with doesn't even respond to it when it's proven. No. Instead, what she does is demand the video be taken down that points out that her feigned concern for the safety of women is feigned. And yet you dare finish this segment with this older-than-you platitude, like it's a witticism worthy of Twain.
If they didn't have double standards, they'd have no standards at all.
Now on to the next item in my naughty list, the ABC spouting the exact same stuff as 2GB. You know that line of thought that the ABC is this bastion of impartial journalism? That is until the last 6 months of the Morrison government, even though they were playing the exact same game as the Howard government the entire time, but without the finesse. So in the more desperate last stages of the last Liberal cycle, it became so obvious that I finally noticed. It's honestly like saying this monkey beating off lost its way. What are you talking about? That's his natural state. All the ABC could possibly ever do is reflect power. That's the design of it. If it's state funded, you will only ever see it regurgitate views that are sanctioned by the state. One day, years after the glorious Stalinist purge that I hope the Labor Party has the guts to fucking do, it will be like what boomers remember it being, which is the ABC under the Hawke years, I'm guessing, and good. But it's still reflecting the state's interests, isn't it? It's just the state at that point is benevolent. It's remarkable to me that the viewers of the ABC over the past few years endlessly eat up any fear-mongering from the US weapons manufacturer-funded think tank ASPI that they spew out on a nightly news basis, dismissing anything that comes back in response from Chinese media as state-funded propaganda, and then immediately cut to a fucking ad of themselves declaring that they're yours. They're the only people on earth who have figured out how to have their cake and eat it too, and it's purely by eating the cake and telling their audience that the cake's still there. And they all go, yes, Auntie. Oh, looks like Auntie blew the lid off that one. I will admit one thing from the it used to be good school of thought. The rot of the ABC well and truly has seeped in to the point that the dead horse is no longer wriggling from rigor mortis. It's just maggots crawling under the skin. The largest of which being Annabelle Crabb. If you ever needed a face that truly represented the terminal stages of this glorified government bus schedule, it is this sloshed wine addict smugly cackling along with other eunuchs and empresses of Canberra with such whimsical side projects. Is you ready for this? Listen to this and tell me that if Annabelle Crabb actually was a crab, she would be one of those ones that is served on the streets of Thailand. Wine with pie. Come on, just reading the title. Don't you feel like you've gotten food poisoning like you had when you ate seafood in a third world country? This is the world view of the ABC. Allow me to schmooze power on your dime. No matter what that power's doing to you, by the way, I'm going to be there as long as there's a cheese platter. But you have to pay for that as well. Also, fuck straight white men. It just reeks in everything these tax-funded cat ladies produce. You know, everyone hates it when politicians use your tax money to have a holiday overseas and write it off as a work expense. Why doesn't anyone get pissed off at ABC journalists for doing exactly the same thing? It's like that old saying, hidden in plain sight. They are filming themselves having a holiday as evidence for why it needs to be written off as a business expense because, I'm investigating whether or not I like Trump fans. I think we can tell what you think of Trump fans from your fucking Twitter. The only trip any ABC journo should ever be allowed to expense is going to China so they can learn how to produce more engaging state propaganda. Yet where does Crabb go to film her little overseas special? Is she going to uncover some war crime in Papua New Guinea? Is she going to see what the troops are up to in Afghanistan? I can't imagine any other possible justification for why you would be spending our money to be producing content that isn't national for a national broadcaster. But you tell me. Do you think this is a good use of your money? I'm going overseas to discover if there's a group of elite professional women that hate men as much as I do. I mean, if such a thing's possible. Either way, Australia needed to see you sipping artisan coffee, Annabelle. Thanks for this groundbreaking journalism. Hope you enjoyed my fucking involuntary shout. What country are you doing this in again? France. Not even French-speaking Africa. Fucking France. In that footage we just showed of the monkey jacking it, he goes on to suck his own dick, and even that is less self-indulgent than Annabelle Crabb. It really pains me that there's a bunch of working class boomers that give these leeches any time of day purely because they were brainwashed into liking them as kids because of that scary doll that was put in front of them every day. But here's a woman, propped up by an institution of fermented grape swillers that would starve in a week if they weren't parasitically living off you, convincing themselves that they're fighting the good fight by mistaking their narcissism for this fuel that keeps them going in this endless struggle against an invisible patriarchy, and the way they dismantle it is by getting you to fund their fucking food tourism. That is her and everyone else left at the ABC after almost 30 years of continual rule by the Tories. That completely unconcerned tumours of the upper class that care about nothing but surface level gestures that faintly remind them of themselves. That's when they speak out. When something pops into their feed that even paper cuts their massive egos. Is remember the story that was completely invented about Gladys the girl boss kicking John Barilaro in his balls because he's a man? Look at this. This is framing for everything. I suspect Gladys B has just won the vote of every woman who has ever worked hard at her job and been forced to put up with some grandstanding, egomaniac, oxygen thief dude constantly messing things up. Please make the ABC a subscription. If I don't have to pay for Sky News, why do I have to pay for this poodle sitting on the cushion of a grandmother's house of an existence? How are you a paid commentator when all you do is spread not just terrible propaganda, really, really serious species-ending propaganda, because the way it was presented reminded you of yourself not getting a promotion you think you deserve, but you can tell from your entire career, Annabelle, you did not deserve it. Can you imagine if any man who worked at the ABC wrote about the so-called koala wars at John Barilaro, yeah, the boys? He'd be stoned to death with macaroons. You can tell by this reaction to me talking about Nicole Flynn. Anything else we've ever done, radio silence. Which is sort of like listening to ABC Local Works, really. But nothing, other than some swear words she didn't like, taken out of context, not worth commenting on. Nor is anything that we cover. As why would you actually cover issues that affect the public? It's not like she's paid hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to inform you of those things. No, that would actually make sense. Nothing matters to Annabelle Crabb unless it passes two very specific criteria. The first one being, is it in a fucking newspaper and therefore unquestionable reality? And two, does it remind me of me, i.e. does it slight the good name of the other self-absorbed high-earning women I've had dinner with in the past? As such, you get again from the supposed impartial ABC that unlike the Murdoch press has a standard, and that standard is the complete regurgitation of Murdoch narratives. Absolutely shocked and depressed to read this morning that a popular comedian, I'm not naming him here because I'm sure that outrage-based traffic is the business model here. That right there is how you can tell she went to an elite private school and has never had to face life for even a second in her musical stuffed existence. I'm guessing. I actually haven't even checked that, and let me just figure that out. And yeah, there we go. Went to a private school, immediately went to work for the Murdoch press. Yet another of these embedded terrorist cells in the public service. How necessary at this point. Can you imagine being so insulated from the harshness of reality that you could possibly think that you could make a sustainable business model out of pissing people off? Couldn't possibly be built off the fact that we actually care about the direction of the country. No, why would you? Isn't the country there to serve you? Because it's okay to call retiring Liberal MP a whiny little bitch and dickhole Flint. See? There you go. Not only megaphoning a bullshit story that was in The Australian that deliberately misquoted me, in fact went further than that. Made up quotes, mindlessly repeated by Crabb, who's clearly incapable of an iota of critical thought, just, what women? No! Not just by Crabb either, a bunch of Fairfax and ABC journos, because it's a revolving door system. They all roll around in the same filth. The mastheads they work for differ in name only, the ticket of admission being you have to be an unquestioning member of this cult, the cult of square glasses. This is a perfect example of what I've been saying for years, that what journalism courses actually teach you subconsciously. This all has to be an unconscious transaction, mind you. But you're supposed to trust that whatever's published in papers is the word of Allah. This is the place where you get your holy directives from, without a hint of irony, as Annabelle Crabb proves this. The pinnacle of it all being The Australian. That's the agenda setter. Every day, to be a truly successful journalist, you have to exist in this 5-year-old fantasy world that, if it's in a paper, it has to be true. After all, my friend wrote it. You have to spew the keywords that you've been subconsciously trained are the ones that need to be continually regurgitated. Keep in mind, you also have to convince yourself that you're being hired by the public to discern what is and isn't true. That also has to be yet another layer of the delusion. And this is also, you can get these keywords, these directives from the Murdoch press and repeat them in a way that appeals to your audience, which in Annabelle's case is a platform completely funded by you and I, tailored to an audience of withered spinsters, which she would never be able to reach without $1 billion of your tax money a year going into building up that platform for these very circumstances, to shift a Murdoch message to those that don't read the Murdoch press. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you, oh proud defenders of the ABC, your mascot, Crabb the Crab. It's not okay, it's appalling. No, Annabelle, the fact you have a job, that's appalling. The actions of your entire career, your view and discernment of any given political topic, the fact that you're paid hundreds of thousands of dollars of my fucking money to sit there and cackle with your shit friends I don't like and pretend that that's politics, that's appalling. What you think is appalling, I have to ask, how can it be appalling if it didn't exist in the first place, oh brave self-anointed discerner of societal morality? Riddle me that. Even if I did call her the names the press accused me of and I didn't, no one cares, except you and your political elite circle. The only reason you think it's a mainstream view is that you and your friends are allowed to spout these extremely niche views in the mainstream to the tune of 100% public subsidy. Let's talk about the actual issues. I'll go through the same list I did with Nicole Flynn, and then we'll see which of these views are niche. Penalty rates. I support it. I was criticising Nicole Flynn for not supporting it. What does she say about penalty rates? Nothing. But she does feel very sorry for certain political staffers in Canberra getting laid off. Does that count as workers' rights? Unions? Does she care about the Liberals' union-busting bills? No, because the unions are filled with misogynists. Of course they are. What she's looking forward to, though, is yet another show about her annoying friends filming themselves having fucking dinners. Well, I hope the food's bad and you all shit yourselves. Here's my morality, you ready? If someone routinely votes for a special extinction, you can call that person a cunt. Clearly Annabelle thinks otherwise, and I would posit it is because she is demented from a life of excess that she didn't earn. The fact she even dares try this with this track record to try and cover her tracks remotely by saying it's not okay for anyone to be subjected to language like that. If only we had an exact example of me calling men whiny little bitches for her to get indignant about. And, oh, that's right, the exact sentence this hive mind lifted this statement from. Everyone in public life cops it. It's only the whiny little bitches like Nicole Flint, Clive Palmer, John Barilaro that have a sook. My overarching point is the ABC is bile. They routinely reflect Murdoch press attack points of the Labor Party. There's countless articles at Independent Australia that point this out over and over again. Their habitual agenda of attacking a party that would actually govern in the interests of the people, the ABC pretend they're looking out for. I've done multiple videos on it myself, but if you need any more proof, it's in the fact that we had a Liberal government for 9 fucking years. If the public broadcaster did what you think that it does, if it did even 10% of what you think it does, there is no chance on earth that would have happened. And there's no chance on earth that this deep inbuilt penetration that has happened over 30 years of Liberal Party appointments is going to change anytime soon. I mean, for Christ's sakes, Ben Fordham is less effective at getting you to hate the Labor Party. In summary, the exact people who trained you to think that Labor and Liberal are the same are the same. Like if you can't wait for the Stalinist purge.
Please share and comment below. Comment.